April has been a very eventful month. This was our layover in Guadalajara, and they told us to stick the luggage into this conveyor belt thing, and it was our checked-in luggage, and somehow it would make it to our connecting flight, which was very, very new. I guess usually the luggage just transfers on its own, so you're not putting it down this kind of sus-looking portal. We took off Friday night, midnight, from Oakland, and we landed in Guadalajara by like 5 a.m. We had a really quick layover. It's basically enough time to get off the plane, buy some water, find out that you got ripped off for water, get back on the plane, and then we landed in Mexico City. For a kilo.
How much is it?
That's a lot.
太贵是不是？
Yeah.
那我就不要了。
Serían
35. It's okay.
那个还可以。
好啊，35。
Andrew 说可以买，
对。
那说我有刀。
对，我有刀。
Our first stop was we got breakfast. We went to this farmer's market that was on the street. Then we checked out one of the best museums here. I'll put the name on the screen. And we got some food there. We were trying to find coffee, honestly. We weren't really needing a second lunch. But the coffee there is really, it's kind of like what I experienced in Turkey, which is you drink it, you don't feel any caffeine, you don't feel awake. But we also had a red-eye flight, so we basically didn't sleep that much. At least I didn't sleep too much on the plane. I'm used to having like 7-8 hours is my sweet spot, and I probably got less than 4. And my mom and brother immediately started to have what they thought was allergies, but it turned out to be a really strong reaction to the air quality there.
You are in my video. But rules tell you not to.
Oh my god.
Knowledge lives by her own rules.
And live by the rules, right?
This museum had everything in Spanish, so we kind of did a self-tour, but we really couldn't figure out too much without being fluent in Spanish. So my brother had recently been to Mexico City, and he was familiar with all the good food spots, and the churros at this place was really good. It's a chain, and you order by, I think you can order different toppings and you can order different quantities, and it's actually really inexpensive, and there's usually a line, and it's kind of like a nice cafe vibe, like a casual snack. Like there's some food items, but it's mostly churros.
Thank you.
These were some of the best tacos that I've had, although I was kind of starting to get what I later realized was altitude sickness around this meal. So this is still the first day. We have been awake for a pretty long time, and I kind of thought I was just getting one of my migraines, but it wasn't quite period time, and I was just kind of confused why I felt so terrible. And I realized later on, a couple days later, that it was probably altitude sickness because I'm very sensitive to altitude. And even though this isn't a place where people would typically take medication for altitude, I'm mega sensitive, and I think the fatigue and the migraines, it was all kind of part of what I was experiencing. I woke up feeling kind of yucky, and my body was even rejecting coffee, but I got some fluids in, I took a migraine medication, and I felt better by the time we got to the pyramids, so really grateful for that. We booked this ahead of time since we knew this was one of the main things we wanted to do here. We met at a public meeting spot, and then it was a group expedition. We had a tour guide. He was really awesome, and we walked around for a bit, and were able to see most of the sites before it got too crowded.
Stairs only. Angles combination. Angles. Los ángulos. La matemática es la razón. Listen. 45 degrees and 90 degrees. Combination is the reason and the cause of that sound. If we not have that geometry, no sound. Listen.
Only to this side or all
No,
the sides?
each one, both through the middle and the center only. Okay? Someone want to try, please?
Andrew, go try.
Yes,
Andrew,
please.
go try. Andrew, go.
Yeah.
I think.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Only are the claps.
Yeah.
Really?
Nice.
Let's try here.
Yeah.
Intenten.
Yeah, it's not over here.
Sí sale, sí
It's
sale.
maybe that spot over there.
Only this. If you stand somewhere else, can you still hear it? You have to stand there.
Good question. I will show you now.
So if you go on one of these tours, I would highly recommend going in the morning because it does get really warm around midday. And it's about 2 hours. You get a tour of the pyramids. Depending on who runs the tours, you may or may not get offered ayahuasca. They show you artwork that, you can't take flash photography around because it's very old and they don't want it to fade. And this is a toilet, so that is a back in the day toilet, and you got to see the inside of some of the buildings. But before the pandemic, you could actually walk on the pyramid steps, and I think after the pandemic they closed that off and they just kept it closed off. It's probably easier to preserve the structures, honestly, but it would have been really cool to actually climb up the pyramids, which is kind of what I thought we were going to do, and it turns out you would have been able to just a few years ago. So this is an up-close view. This is the Pyramid of the Sun. So we started at the Pyramid of the Moon and we walked over to the other side where we then obtained a obsidian knife. Bye!
Especially when you come to places like this. Andrew, you can pose it.
Can you hold it a
That's what we pieced together. Oh my god.
Bueno,
Same. I'm comfortable listening to
oye,
it.
Víctor, ¿cuántos
I
caen en
can,
tu
I'll try to
camioneta?
respond in Spanish, but then I can't.
Porque crees que ahí cuesta eso.
Next, we went to this underground cafe for lunch, and it's definitely, I don't think it's like earthquake or fire safe. There's just a little small hole that you have to climb up these steep stairs to get out of the restaurant, and I think if anything actually happened, we'd probably get stuck. Part of our tour on the way back into Mexico City included a stop at the Basilica of Our Lady Guadalupe, and it was interesting. The floor was very much not level, so because the ground that the building is on has been sinking, you can feel there is a incline walking into the basilica. The next day, we went on a boat tour of Lake Xochimilco. I'm so sorry if I'm pronouncing this wrong, but this was our second main activity while visiting Mexico City, and somehow this just was totally by luck. My mom and brother booked this Airbnb adventure, and I had wanted to go see one of those cool looking underwater amphibious animals, and this happened to be one of the only places that has it. I think they're also in zoos elsewhere, but this was basically all I wanted to see while we were there, and they picked the exact place for it. This was actually a rather long excursion. We paddled the way out to where we would look at nature and look at the solar eclipse, and then we paddled back, and the whole thing was, it's like 4 to 5 hours. It was a pretty relaxed pace, and the only way to get out to the little island that we were trying to get to was through paddling, and there's no motorized vehicles allowed, so you have to naturally paddle to get to where you're trying to go. And so these people who work on those islands actually commute by boat every day. Also, there's lots of cool birds. This is a great thing to do if you're into bird watching. And you can also see cows just randomly on the shores because this is actually farmland. So this was definitely one of the highlights of my trip, mostly because I got to see the axolotl. I don't know how to pronounce it, probably saying it wrong. It's super cute. The only souvenir I got myself and my boyfriend were just the t-shirts with the cute animal, the axolotl on it, probably saying it wrong. And we also got that obsidian knife, but that's just for the family. It's just going to be an heirloom now. And actually on the way back, our luggage didn't arrive, and it was the only suitcase that didn't show up on the whole flight, and our knife was in it. And I was like, I'm probably never going to see that knife again, but it turned up a couple days later. No idea what happened to it. The way back was a direct flight, so that kind of shady looking thing that we put our luggage in on the way there, our luggage made it to Mexico City, did not make it back to Oakland. And I'm actually really glad that we didn't have delayed luggage on the way there, because we would have had nothing. So it's actually kind of worked out okay that it came back to the bay just a couple days later, but I really thought, that knife was gone for good, and I was mourning for a couple days.
See, this is not unusual activity for...
Yeah, regular activity.
Very amazing in that regard, and some researchers think that they can help us know a little bit better about some chronic or degenerative diseases, right? So it's an animal that is heavily used in some research, mainly regeneration research, right? But have you seen salamanders before? They are like thin and mainly ground-based, a little slimy. Axolotls are baby salamanders their whole lives to function correctly, right? So that's why they don't go into the adult state. They stay like babies, form of babies their whole lives, right? Another very interesting thing about these animals is how they breathe, right? How they reproduce.
Yeah.
After that quick lunch, we paddled back, and then we took a really long drive back into Mexico City. And I'm not sure what did it. I don't think it was the greens from the lunch. Those were delicious, but I think I may have eaten some local food that gave me food poisoning, and so this was towards the end of the trip, but I was plagued with not being able to hold my bowels for almost 10 days. Like, for sure a whole week after I came home, I was having trouble with my bowels, and so that's finally resolved just in time for me to leave tomorrow for yet another location. I have been training every day since I've been back, even with the bowel issues, so today will be day 13 of training in a row. I am ready for some time to recover from that, because that is a lot of days of training. I usually rest at least one day a week, and I have not successfully been bulking. As I mentioned in my previous video, I was trying to gain weight going into the summer. Obviously, from the food poisoning, I lost a good amount of weight, and I will do my best to regain my appetite in the next couple of weeks. Bye-bye, Mexico City.
Stop taking a video and let's go.
But I'm going to be walking a lot since we're going to be doing a lot of sightseeing, so I will get back to lifting and trying to get my gains and prep for nationals after we get back. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions about visiting Mexico City, please leave them for me in the comments below.